The European Commission sends another shipment of 45 tons of medicines and nutritional packages to people in the Gaza Strip.
Portuguese Prime Minister Antonio Costa has resigned over his involvement in a widespread corruption probe.
Germany said it will examine the idea of processing asylum applications abroad as Italy strikes a deal with Albania to process its migrants there.
While waiting for an agreement on some sort of pause in military operations in the Gaza Strip, the European Commission is coordinating the shipment of another 45 tons of medicines and nutritional packages. The cargo transported by an Egyptian plane Tuesday goes from Belgium's Ostende airport to Al Arish in Egypt near the Rafah border crossing point into Gaza.
On reçoit en fait des listes de produits qui sont requis, l'idée étant vraiment de pouvoir créer un flux coordonné de produits vers Gaza et de ne pas encombrer les espaces logistiques avec des produits qui ne seraient pas encore requis.
Although the quantities are only a small fraction of what's needed for the 2.2 million people under siege, food, water and medicine are still allowed into Gaza. But the Israeli government maintains a strict ban on fuel supplies, which is exacerbating the humanitarian emergency.
Fuel is needed in order to power generators, to run hospitals, to operate the water pumps and desalination plants, to run bakeries, and not least to enable humanitarian workers to move around and provide the supplies to people who need it. So this is the picture. We will continue to work on the improving of access. We'll continue to impress on all the parties to introduce the necessary arrangements. You call it humanitarian windows, pauses or ceasefires.
On Monday, the UN Security Council once again failed to agree on a resolution suspending military operations, with the US calling for humanitarian pauses and many others demanding a humanitarian ceasefire. Until that happens, the UN agencies and other humanitarian aid organisations also stress the need to open the two border crossings from the Israeli side, because so far help has not reached the north of Gaza.
They need access to humanitarian assistance as much as in the south. And with a blockade on fuel, this is a major challenge of whether or not the trucks can move from the south to the north. This is why unhindered, continuous flow of assistance is the most critical here, because we're not talking about just past the border, we're talking all the way through Gaza.
The flight from Ostende and another that left today from Dubai brings the number of EU humanitarian air bridge flights to 8. The European Commission says this ends the first phase of help, with the second one starting in a few weeks' time.
Hundreds of people have taken part in a protest outside the Israeli parliament. They're demanding government action to ensure the safe return of the hostages abducted by Hamas militants during the October 7th attacks. Blame and anger is growing, with only 5 people freed after more than a month after the raid.
The government of Israel, the state of Israel betrayed my parents, betrayed our communities, and betraying those 240 hostages and their family again and again and again, with every passing minute that they are not back home safe with their families.
The highest priority is to bring the hostages, no matter what, even if it involves to switch to release all prisoners, not only Hamas, all Palestinian prisoners, for exchange of the hostages.
The plight of the hostages is being felt by many around the world, including in London. Military analysts have warned of weeks of grueling house-to-house fighting ahead in Gaza. The operation to find the hostages is hugely complicated, as it's believed they're being held inside a network of tunnels spanning hundreds of kilometers. In Argentina, almost 50 teddy bears with their eyes and mouths covered were tied to the fence surrounding the obelisk of Buenos Aires. They represent the 40 or more children among those being held by Hamas.
Portuguese Prime Minister Antonio Costa has resigned over his involvement in a widespread corruption probe. The Public Prosecutor's Office announced in a statement on Tuesday that it was investigating Costa and several members of his cabinet for alleged crimes of prevarication, active and passive corruption and influence peddling.
Meu entendimento que a dignidade das funções de Primeiro-Ministro não é compatível com qualquer suspeição sobre a sua integridade, a sua boa conduta e, menos ainda, com a suspeita de prática de qualquer ato criminal. Por isso, nesta circunstância, obviamente, apresentei a minha demissão a Sua Excelência, o Sr. Presidente da República.
At least 5 people have been arrested as part of a police investigation, including the Infrastructure Minister João Galamba and Prime Minister's Chief of Staff. The investigation is looking into alleged irregularities in the handling of lithium and hydrogen projects in the country. Costa said his conscience was clear and he was fully available to collaborate with the justice system.
Burning the midnight oil in Berlin as Chancellor Scholz met federal and state leaders to discuss migration. Concessions were made on funding and a promise was made to examine if asylum applications could be processed abroad.
Unser gemeinsames Ziel ist es, diese irreguläre Migration zurückzudrängen. Klar ist, wir brauchen einen besseren Schutz der europäischen Außengrenzen und wir brauchen eine solidarische Verteilung in Europa. Deshalb ist es auch notwendig, dass wir alles dafür tun, dass wir diejenigen, die nicht bleiben können, einfacher zurückführen können, als es heute der Fall ist. Eine unverzichtbare Voraussetzung dafür sind Migrationsabkommen mit den Herkunftsländern, mit Transitländern.
A done deal in Rome, where Italy's agreed to build 2 migration processing centres in Albania. Critics say it amounts to deportation. The deal was also slammed by the opposition in Tirana.
Duke shprehur respektin tim për kryeministrin e Italisë, Giorgia Meloni, më duhet t'i them se firma e Edi Ramës në atë marrëveshje është e pavlefshme. Është e pavlefshme sepse Edi Rama është kryeministër në hetim ndërkombëtar dhe është i gatshëm të firmosë çdo gjë.
As the row played out, another migrant boat ran aground on Lampedusa, while in Brussels the EU has said it's asked Italy for more details of the deal with Albania.
This 63-year-old Parkinson's disease patient has regained the use of his legs thanks to the help of a team of Franco-Swiss researchers. The successful implantation of electrodes inside his body gives tremendous hope for patients who've lost their mobility due to the disease.
On a mis des électrodes sur la région de la moelle épinière qui contrôle les jambes. Et pour ça, il a fallu les positionner de façon très précise pour activer chacun des muscles des jambes symétriquement. Et puis on a lié ces électrodes à un stimulateur, une forme de pacemaker qu'on peut programmer depuis l'extérieur, donc tout est sous la peau.
Sur les 20 dernières années, on a travaillé à développer des protocoles de stimulation de la moelle épinière extrêmement précis. Est-ce que finalement, on ne pourrait pas appliquer les mêmes concepts pour améliorer les troubles de la marche dus à la maladie de Parkinson? Finalement, on a une moelle épinière qui est intacte et qui ne reçoit plus d'informations du cerveau.
Parkinson's is a disease which affects more men, and usually people over the age of 50. It has an impact on mobility.
Ça me rend autonome, ça me permet d'aller faire des courses, ça me permet d'aller voir des magasins. Maintenant, c'est quand même autre chose. Je retrouve une vie normale, là je suis parti au Brésil, pour aller se balader.
Notes from beyond the grave and never received. 250 years after they were written, a batch of letters to French sailors have finally been opened and studied. The sailors were captured by the British at the height of the 7 Years' War in the 18th century and held in UK prisons. Dozens of letters were sent mainly by wives and mothers who didn't know of their men's fate. They languished in the British National Archives until a French professor working at Cambridge University discovered them.
J'ai compris tout de suite que c'était pas des lettres officielles de diplomates, d'aristocrates ou de grands bourgeois, mais c'était vraiment des lettres, j'ai compris tout de suite de gens du commun, on va dire. Et donc mon rythme cardiaque s'est accéléré, j'ai tout de suite compris que c'était vraiment un objet unique, et c'était vraiment ma plus grande émotion d'historien jusqu'à ce jour.
The letters give a fascinating insight into the lives of families during the late 1700s. Some expressed love and fidelity to absent husbands and fiancés. It's thought some of the senders died without seeing their loved ones again.
With their Premier League unbeaten streak recently broken, Arsenal are now turning their focus to the Champions League as they welcome Sevilla to the Emirates this evening. 2 weeks after edging out the Europa League champions in Spain, a win could potentially guarantee the Gunners a passage to the knockout phase with 2 games in hand. Mikel Arteta's men are currently top of Group B, but the Arsenal manager will be without Thomas Partey and Gabriel Jesus, while Martin Odegaard remains doubtful. Sevilla will be looking to get back to winning ways after picking up just 2 points in their last 3 group games. However, veteran defender Sergio Ramos is likely to miss out with a muscle injury. The Spaniards have so far made a habit of drawing since Diego Alonso was appointed as manager and are currently struggling in La Liga as they sit 15th with 11 points from 11 games. In Group B's other fixture, the surprise package loss will aim to continue their fairy tale run in the competition when they lock horns with PSV Eindhoven at the Philips Stadium. Elsewhere, FC Copenhagen host Manchester United, while Bayern Munich could book their place in the knockout phase with a win over Galatasaray. In Group C, Napoli welcome Union Berlin, while Sporting Braga will face a tough trip to the Bernabeu to face group leaders Real Madrid. And in Group D, Benfica will be hoping to secure their first points when they take on Real Sociedad, with Inter and Salzburg facing off in the other game.